In this video, part 4 of creating menus and stuff for DVDs for using Encore and After Effects and Photoshop and all that kind of stuff, we are going to look at a different way to create our menus actually using After Effects. Now, After Effects is awesome because I love all the things that you can do with it. Now, we can always start to bring in our files that we need into After Effects itself. That particular one wasn't being used. So this is where things get a little bit complicated when it comes to resources. Because this menu that I've got, this sky blue, it's called sky blue menu wide, and it's actually, that's not the name of my project. My project is sample trailers. So that's why I don't really like going to the menus themselves. Or let's say going through Encore and grabbing these menus and bringing them in, because then that's actually what they're called, and that to me doesn't make much sense. Now we can rename this, I believe, so I'll call this thing the sky blue. This will be the sample trailers main menu, and then that's DV wide. That way I just know that it is DV wide. So let's just see. I don't know if that renames the file originally, but let's take a look. If I refresh, no, it doesn't seem like it renames the original asset. So that, in my opinion, is a really, really bad thing, because that means that you've got one name in here, and the asset that it's actually linked to is named something different. So that's why I'm not a big fan of this workflow. So instead, what I think is very important is that you actually work on trailer samples, or sample trailers, I guess. Trailers, main menu, DV wide. I think it's very important that you have these things named before you import them into any other projects. So that's why I'm always a fan of editing your projects first. Now these other temp files right now, I'm not really sure if I can just get rid of them, because I think right now it doesn't really matter. Nothing's in Encore. Anyway, I might decide not to worry about having this yet, because I'm going to take this out of here. I'm actually going to take both of these out of here because they're not really being used. Neither one's being used. I'm going to put them back in my design assets files. And you'll see why in a little bit. Now let's just take our DV main menu wide Photoshop file and just open it up and take a look again at what the structure is. I've got some items in here which are kind of unnamed. So that's really kind of a bad thing. So let's call that header BG. This one will be, let's see, I don't know, wide BG. I don't even know if that's going to be used in my final thing. And then I've got this file, which is fine to name it exactly what it is, because that's what the original name is. But might be nice for me to get some other assets. So I'm going to go into my folders. Let's see. I actually started looking for some other items, and it might be nice to bring some of these other things in. Like, look at that background. That's kind of nice. So I'm actually going to save that image. I'm going to put it into the Design Assets folder, and it says it's a GIF image, but well, let's not worry about the quality issues right now. Let's see. That's kind of interesting. Let's save the images, see maybe if we can use it. Now once again, we are just randomly grabbing images, which is not necessarily the best way for us to work. There's the movie Super Edition, so I'll save that. It's kind of a cool little icon there. Let's see if there's anything else here that I know that I'd want to use. Oh, I saw this and I thought that might be really cool to use actually for some other animation. So we'll get to that. I'm going to download it because I know how I'm going to use it. Let's see, anything else? There's a little bit larger JPEG of the movie, so that might be really good. I might even look for the movies PNG. Let's see if I can find that movie's PNG file. Because a PNG file is actually really useful because you can composite it on top of other things. Like that might be a PNG, so I'm going to save it. Oh, it's actually a JPEG. That's too bad. Let's see, maybe one of these other ones. That could be popcorn. Maybe it's a PNG. It's popcorn PNG, so we'll save and we'll just save that name just as it is. Let's see, that's kind of a film strip, and it could be a PNG. Let's find out. It says PNG, so we're going to hope that it has transparency, because that means we'll be able to edit with After Effects. We'll be able to do some really cool things with it. I don't see any other movies icon that I know I definitely want to use. But, you know, finding resources for your movies is always something that takes some time. Now, I have some ideas of how I'm going to use some of these items, but let's just take a look. I've got the film strip that I made here, and unfortunately it doesn't have transparency. But, you know, we'll be able to do some things with it. This one is really large. I'm actually going to scale it down a little bit. Let's make it 1,000 pixels wide or so. That looks okay. I'm going to save that right now. And I'm actually going to take that into Photoshop at some point and then edit it a little bit. Because, let me actually take that in now. I know that I am going to get rid of this stuff right here, the movie lounge. So I'm actually going to take, let's see, how can I get rid of that? I want to stretch that stuff up to the right a little bit. So what I could do is do kind of a, let me go back and do a selection that's kind of the length of that stuff right there. And now under, let's see, layer, I want to transform that selection. I'm going to rotate the selection so it's basically parallel with the text. That looks pretty good. Now I can double click. Now I'm going to do Control T to transform. Ooh, it's not going to give me what I want. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, it's not easy making changes the way you'd like. Because what I wanted to do was take this gradient and stretch it across. And it looks like I might have to fake it a different way. Now I can always use, and this is a good option, I can always use the clone stamp tool. And as long as I'm going up that same angle, then I should be able to pretty much get that right back exactly the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to have to do it in kind of a few different passes here. But that's what I want. I want to get rid of that movies. So the thing is, if you want to really do some really fun design stuff, you're gonna have to get your design elements from places and then design them to be the way that you want to use them. So I'm just fixing that. And then eventually I'm going to take this into After Effects and animate with it, which is really cool. So there we go. I've gotten rid of some of that stuff. It's not perfect, but that's okay for right now. See, if I mess with it too much, it's just going to look even worse. So I'm just trying to get that angle fixed a little bit. There we go. I think that looks a little bit better. I don't think that anyone's going to complain too much about that. So now I can save that again, and I know that I'm going to animate with that in a little bit. So instead of saying movie lounge, it's going to have that instead. So really, really nice. Now some of the other items I can animate in After Effects, but let's start in After Effects by importing some of the elements that we're going to use. The very first thing that we might do is start to import all of these items, because I know I'm going to use them at some point. So I'm going to go to that Design Assets folder, and using the Alt key, drag it into After Effects. This will tell it to bring it all in as footage. Now there's one item in there that I might not want to have just come in as footage, and that's that Photoshop document. So I think I'm going to have to import that one by itself. So if I go back to that folder and I go to the Photoshop file and try and bring it into After Effects, hopefully it will come up with a menu, which it did, where I can now go and say, let's use composition retain layer sizes. Now the reason that I wanted to bring that in as a composition, I'm going to put that other folder inside here, is because now it's coming in with all of the let's see, extras, DV, there we go. Am I viewing two views? Yeah, one view. I just want one view. There we go. It's coming in with all the folders and everything else already organized for me, which is really, really nice. There we've got our play all and trailers and extras, and these are actually subcomps that are inside here. So those subcomps are actually important. I'm going to drag them out. And the reason why is because I need to have access to those. So I'm going to call those Precomps. And I'm going to put those Precomps in that folder because I know they're being used for that main menu. There is that menu. Now I can start to bring in some of the other design elements maybe that I want to use. Maybe the popcorn. So there's that popcorn. Just bring it in like that. Looks a little stretched. I'm going to scale it back a little bit. And maybe we can do something like color correction. Let's see, key. Let's do a simple color key. See if we can just get rid of that white around the outside edge. That's not terrible. We just don't want it to be too close. There we go, 15, 8, 10. Looks like we can get rid of stuff pretty well with that. Now we could add something like a drop shadow to it. Let's see, distort, color correction, where's that thing? I should remember. Perspective. 10 years ago when I used to use After Effects all the time, I'd know exactly where all the different filters were, but things change. So let's do some softness there. Actually, take that back to 0. So now we're giving it a little glow. Our popcorn. We could even make it, yellow or something like that, because that way it'd have a little bit of glow to it, which would be kind of fun. So you can see that we can bring things into After Effects and actually use them as assets, which is kind of nice because we have the freedom to move it around where we want. We'd even have the freedom to animate it the way we want. So that's what I love about this. Now we can bring in some other elements as well. This is always a problem, is getting over to the other panel that I want. Dun, dun, dun. I'm going to have to move that over. There we go. Oh, there we go. Get over there. Now let's see what else we have. Movies icon. Movies GIF. I'm going to put that in here. I don't know why they made it a GIF, but I can scale that up a little bit, scale it back a little bit. And I'm not too concerned about it fitting perfectly, and the fact that I'm scaling it a little bit and distorting it, because it's just going to be used for a background element, which is me just taking it, putting it in front of that background. Let me find that background again, and then maybe changing the way it's used a little bit. Maybe I can make it screen, or let's see if we can find something that looks better than that. Add. No, that looks kind of yucky. Overlay. It's a really ugly color for that. So what I can do actually is remove some of that color. Color correction. Let me go to brightness, contrast, auto levels, auto color, color balance. Where is that? Hue saturation. There we go. I'm just going to take that saturation down. You'll see by taking that saturation down to just black and white, instead of it having this heavy color, That way we can use it as an overlay or add or multiply, and we can definitely get a little bit better results. It's always the problem is finding, soft light looks a little bit better in my opinion. Now I'm kind of getting some subtle trailer stuff in the background, but it's not overwhelming the background. And then you can experiment with having layers on or off. Maybe it'd be nice not to have it on. And then of course the last thing we need is some sort of movies icon. Let's see, there's that movies icon that we had. And I can even use the same sort of effects that this had and try and see if they'll copy and paste from one to the other. So I'm going to copy those, go to the other layer and paste it. Control V and see if it worked. It's not perfect, but hey, it's a start. Now what would be definitely better is if we edited this graphic, you know, in Photoshop or something like that, to get rid of all the edges before we brought it in. But I'm not going to take the time to do that right now. I'm just doing this to kind of show just a simple way to set up our menu with a little bit more going on than just by, you know, this basic thing. Now I'm going to save this project. The reason I'm saving it is because I am always going to save my work. This is my sample trailers before I do anything special. Sample trailers. There we go. Now it's saved. Now I wanted to look at a slightly different way of doing things. Now you'll notice that I've got this play all, and I've got this trailers, and I've got this extras. Well, one of the things that is kind of cool in After Effects is that you can reuse something without any problem at all. For example, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of, I'm going to duplicate this layer. There we go. So we know that this is a duplicate of that original menu. And I'm going to get rid of these other symbols. And the reason I'm getting rid of those other symbols is because I want to be able to use this play all button. And I want to be able to use it the same time, or I want to be able to reuse it many times. So I'm actually going to go into that Precomp that's there and change it somehow. I'm going to go into this item right here and put everything back up to the top left. Hopefully I can get up there. You know what? I never did turn on those other layers, which is kind of dumb. Probably want to have those things turned on because I need to be able to move them all to the same place. Now what I'd really like is that the composition would fit that size. So let's see what the size of that, trying to decide how I want to do this. I'm going to have to kind of guesstimate right now. Composition settings are going to be 300 pixels wide and 60 pixels tall. And that's pretty close. I did an okay job. Now the reason that I did that was just so I can get this button in here and get all the assets with that button so that I only have one button that will be used as a pre-comp for all the other times that I make these buttons. Let me change that width to 280. And I think that's pretty good. We've done a pretty good job of doing that. Now I'm going to turn off those highlights because we don't need them turned on. I'm going to go back to that DV wide, and you'll see there I've got that one move button, and now I'm going to duplicate that button. Duplicate, duplicate, and make a couple versions of it. Now the problem with this is that right now I don't have the text on these buttons the way I want them to be on here. So that's kind of a problem for animation. But it's not going to be a problem for Encore if we play our cards right. So this is just an option, not to say that you have to do it this way. It's just when you have certain elements that you can reuse over, it's kind of a good idea just because it saves a little bit of complexity. But what I'm going to do here is actually just rename these. So that first one there will be that second one. First one's play all. This will be trailers. And then the last one, which is actually here at the bottom or at the top, I'm going to move it down. There we go. That one will be extras. Now I've got my different menus with the buttons there. Now even though I've created all these other menus and different background items, we could go ahead and put all those into its own background, which is kind of nice, just so you know. We can actually take all that stuff and put it into its own background. So I might go ahead and pre-comp all of that. So Control-Shift-C, I'll say that is going to be the main menu BG. So that's there. Now, doesn't mean that I had to pre-comp all that stuff, because maybe all I really want was the basic background elements, all of that stuff, like that basic background to be in the menu, in the background. So just to be aware that you don't have to have everything moved. I'm just going to put that stuff back into place. I just copied and pasted it back over to here. Oops. And I need the, let's see, the background, trailer, wide, and I need all that stuff to go on top. Let's see. Oh, it reordered these things. I've seen that many times. I forget that it does that. I just have to reorder the stuff. When I copy and paste, sometimes it does reorder things. Now I can turn those back on, and you'll see we're back to where we started from. I know that might be a little complicated. Oh, it's picky. There we go. It's not wanting to move over for me. I think that I'm running out of memory or something. Here we go. Go there. Save that. Okay, now the reason that I was looking at pre-comping it is because some elements can be pre-comped for like backgrounds and stuff like that, and other elements don't have to be, because these, you know, maybe I want to animate on that layer by itself. It's just something that you have to get used to, moving layers from one comp to another and copy and pasting them and things like that. But anyway, I'm ready to actually generate a menu for this, for like Photoshop, so I can actually import it into Encore as a menu. And so I just wanted to point out, we can go to that composition, save frame as Photoshop layers, and I'm going to save this into my assets folder, and I'll just, I guess, save it as the name that I've saved my comp right now. Let's go into my assets folder. Just take a look. You'll see that I have my layers with all of the different items there. Right now they all say play all, but that's not really going to be a major issue for us, because you'll see that we can change that text in Encore itself. So now if I wanted to import that into Encore, I could do so. Let's go to Encore real quick. Import as a menu. Let's go design assets, so that's the sample trailer. There you can see we have it. But if I wanted to change that to something else, let me import my timelines. The trailers, there's my 3 trailers. I'm going to import those. And by the way, while they're importing, you might notice that it will create maybe XMP files after these are finished importing. Let's see. It's taking some time. Let's go back to that folder, and you'll see, yeah, it made the XMP files. So don't worry about having those XMP files. They're just something that Adobe creates. Now, we'll reorganize these just put our assets like our video files in there. So that out here we have just our major projects. And here's what I wanted to show, and that is if I'm linking to something, I can actually change the text. Or set name from link. There we go. So you can see I can change the name up here. And that's what I thought was really cool, is that the text, even though it came from After Effects, is still a text item which I can rename at any point. So I can use the same button in After Effects and bring it into Encore and rename it to whatever I want, whatever I need. It's just something that's kind of cool. Now, if we are going to have our names and all that kind of stuff animated as part of our introduction for our After Effects, then we may have some issues there that we want to think about. So that's actually what I'm going to look at now, which is animating some of these things. I've got a very simple background that I'd like to animate. So I'm going to come in here and take this right here and turn it into some sort of animated background. So the first thing I have is my background element itself. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. The only reason I'm doing that is just to see if we get a different... that's actually the one I want. I don't want that one. I want that layer. Duplicate. Because that layer is not even being seen. So here, I'll rotate it with 180 there. Now you can see that way I can actually get some sort of cool animation. I could actually, if I made that thing large enough, I can make it rotate all the way around and nobody would really know the wiser. Because I could just rotate this thing over and over. Let me turn that on, make sure that that's what we see. You can see I could just rotate that and keep on rotating it. And as long as the image is large enough, which this is barely large enough, then I'd be able to get some sort of rotating background. So here, let's try it out. I'm going to set this all back to 0. And I'm going to make my background only 15 seconds long to save some time. And I'm going to make it rotate twice during that time. Oh, I forgot to make keyframes. Take that back to 0. So now what I have is an animation of that background rotating over 15 seconds. And that's it. Very simple at this point. So now the other one that I might have to do, or might want to do, is maybe make this kind of move in or zoom in or something like that, just real slowly. So let me scale that up maybe a little bit. I'll scale that over half the time. So that will scale up a little bit like that. And then let's see. I'm going to have it fade in from 0 at the beginning. Then it will go to 100%. So it's just fading in from 0. Let me hit the U key to find out how long that animation is going to be. Because then what I can do is I can cut that item at that point. And now I'm going to fade it out. So you can see that I can create some sort of animated background pretty easily in this. Now all I need is something to do with the next section. So let's see if we have any other graphics in here that would be kind of work well. That was another icon I brought in. Now I'm not dealing with extremely high quality graphics with what I've got here. I'm going to fit it to the screen first. And the reason that I'm not dealing with completely high quality graphics is because I just didn't take the time to look for them. I'm going to do the same sort of thing. Actually, I'm just going to copy and paste the same thing from here over. Now the one thing that I know that I'm going to change though is my scale. So I'm going to go back and remove my scale keyframes, because my first scale I'm going to fit to the screen with Control, Alt, and F, and then I'm going to scale it up from there. So let's see how long that opacity, whoops, the opacity never gets back to 0. I somehow deleted those keyframes. And now I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. I hate those guides being in the way. So you can see those are going to come in, and I'm going to use soft light as well. So really simple. And I'm going to have that go until about 15 seconds. And at 15 seconds it should be down to 0%, which means that at the beginning and at the end I have the exact same look. Now if we wanted this to be a little bit more seamless, then we would have to work a little bit harder on it, but I just wanted to show you that we could make a simple background and import it into Encore and use it. So I'm going to make this as a background. I'm going to save it, and this time I'm going to create a renders folder inside here. New folder, renders. This is going to be the main menu BG animation. And I'm going to come in here, and for my output modules I'm going to use MPEG-2 DVD. Now another thing that we probably want to do here is remove any audio output, because we don't really need to worry about it. Let's see, we are in the main menu background. Best settings, let's just take a look. 720 by 480. Everything is good there. Oh, says use this frame rate. I want the frame rate 29.97. I wonder how that got set. So let's actually look at something real quick. Let's go to our settings, and I did Control K, and I want that to be 29.97. I don't know how that got changed. And I could even change it to 15 frames, or 15 seconds, so it matches the length of this. But now that should be the correct size, correct settings. So I'm going to go to MPEG-2 DVD. I'm no longer getting that warning that we saw. Now I can go ahead and render this. I think everything else has been set already. So it's rendering my background, and this background is going to be imported into Encore and used as a motion graphics background. Alright, so it's now finished. Now we can go and just about finish making this DVD. Now we haven't created all the other menus. I'm aware. We have one more that I'd like to do, and that is the one with the little thumbnails of the images of the videos. But I'm going to import that as an asset, and that's kind of important, is that I'm importing this as an asset, not as a timeline, because I don't want a timeline that's associated with it, because it's just going to be used as the background for this particular file. So in order to use it as a background, I want to click on the menu, then go over to Motion, and drag that video to where it says that particular background. Now, in the layers, I need to turn off the backgrounds that I don't want to be seen. But you'll see that right now it has that video in the background, but all we're seeing is the first frame. To actually see what this looks like, I need to go to Preview. Oh, so first play should be set to the menu. Let's go to Preview. And I need to render this motion menu. Now, when I render this motion menu, it's actually going to save those renders into this original folder, which is called sample trailers, sources, and then you'll see like menus, and you'll see it's actually creating the MPEG-2 file for that background right now. So take a look. You can see that I now have a motion menu background for this particular menu. And you can see what these would look like if these were highlighted. Pretty cool, isn't it? So pretty simple to do. If we come back here, let me refresh this, and you'll see that is that menu that we just made. It says MM for motion menu. So maybe you're seeing it right now. You might not be in this particular tutorial, but it actually rendered that asset for me, and that's what that is. And it put it in the sources folder for me as well. Even though its original source was this render here, it made another copy of it in Encore. So what's really important in Encore is to realize that if your DVD project goes away and you lose everything that's inside this samples folder, you could get rid of this entire Encore project. And as long as you have all the assets and you have, of course, your original plan, what you're building, it's actually very quick for you to build a DVD. And so in order to kind of finish off what we do with this DVD, you'll see that I've got my menu here, I've got my 3 different videos here, and we'd put those into a playlist. We'd want to create our second menu for our videos with the thumbnails, and then we'd want to do the ones with our pictures as well. And that's one of the other things that I want to show in After Effects in the next video, is how we can do some of those other screens and show you how After Effects is really effective at doing this. So that'll be coming up soon.